My name is Mike Foster, the Entrepreneur's Mentor, and welcome to my interview series, A Zoom With. Many of you know that I regularly share my thoughts via my video snippets on my YouTube channel, but this series of interviews is to introduce you to trusted experts with a view of them sharing with you their thoughts, their tips, their expertise. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Rebecca Woolmington of HR Central. Rebecca is a director and a HR consultant assisting SMEs with recruitment and outsourced human resources. Welcome, Becca.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Just to kick off, I'm going to ask you a few questions, but just to kick off, if you could just introduce yourself and a little bit about HR Central.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca Woolmington. I run and own HR Central Limited. We've been going since 2006. So this year is our 15th birthday, which we're really proud to have achieved this big milestone. We have a team of 4 of us, 3 in the office, 1 that works remotely and helps us with salary benchmarking. But we're generalists and we provide outsourced HR to SME across the Thames Valley.
Thanks, Becca. So you mentioned outsourced HR as opposed to HR consultancy.
Yes.
Why do you choose that as the phrase?
When I started HR Central, I was literally just working as an HR consultant. So I'd do one-off projects for my clients, and then I'd resolve the issue and move on to the next client. And I found that wasn't as satisfying as working within a corporate environment. But I'd got fed up with the politics of being in one business and the scope of working within one business. So it was much nicer for me to be involved in a business for a long period of time and to be able to resolve all of those issues. So after a few years, I identified a gap in the market, really. I think there's a lot of small to medium-sized businesses that have no HR resource, but have a lot of HR issues, all the way through from recruitment, right the way through to letting people go and the disciplinary and grievance process in between. So we cover a lot of the more positive things now, as well as the employee engagement. We deal with, as their outsourced HR, and really that means that we are providing the whole service as an HR person would in-house. So many of our clients are too small really to hire somebody who has an HR background, because they wouldn't be fully utilised during that time. So we now provide a generalist service that encompasses all of the areas of HR. So you can pick and choose what you need as a client, but we're there to deal with everything and anything in the background that you should need over a period of time. And many of our clients stay with us for a lot of years. I mean, most of our clients have been on average with us about 8 or 9 years now.
Wow, fantastic. And I know you've got a great team there, and I know from my clients that I've introduced to you, you offer a great service. But the thing that intrigues me, and this is a question I've asked a few of my guests, is why did you set up HR Central in the first place?
I was working in corporate land and I loved what I did. I mean, I love HR. I mean, that sounds a bit odd to probably the people listening, because HR is usually at the bottom of everybody's list as an SME business owner. People don't like it or they don't understand it, but I genuinely love what I do. And I loved doing what I was doing in a corporate environment. And I'd reached the heady heights of being a line manager. I was on the succession plan within the business. I had 27 people working for me over 2 areas. I'd moved into more of the learning and development function, but I kept the generalist operational role because I didn't want to let go of anything. I loved the whole generalist HR environment. And by generalist, I mean everything from problem resolution all the way through to the recruitment and the redundancy process. So it's every aspect of HR. I've never really wanted to be a specialist. And I think within a career environment, you tend to have to be a specialist at some point. You either stay at a manager's level and you don't really progress, or you go into a specialist area. And I didn't want to do either of those things, really. And without sounding rude to the company that I was working for, I started to get a little bit bored. You know, it was the same issues, the same people, the same politics. You know, you get a lot of politics when you're in a corporate environment. And I could see that lots of other businesses would benefit from my experience. And so I just thought, well, actually, I'll go it alone. I have my boys. I wasn't working at that point. I'd left to have my children. I've got twin boys who are now 19. And I stayed at home with them for a few years and thought, actually, this is my time to see if I can make something of it. I wasn't giving up a job to do the role of or create HR Central. So I thought, we'll give it a go and see what happens. And I haven't looked back.
Fantastic. Great news. And I think what would be really interesting for those listening is that what type of businesses use an outsourced HR support service. So what sort of clients have you got? What sort of services do they typically ask for?
We describe ourselves as industry agnostic. So we deal with every sort of industry, and every size of client as well, from your startup who are literally taking on their first employee and want some help and advice about legal compliance, and maybe even sourcing that first person for them. We use a lot of tech to set up our clients' outsourced HR. So they'll have applicant tracking systems, they'll have HR information systems, all of which are based in the cloud that we can pop in and out of. So we can manage probably clients at anything really from one employee up to our largest client at the moment is 120 employees, and everything and anything in between. So it really is very varied. We have STEM clients, we have hairdressers, we have shops, we have hospitality, we have gluten-free cafes, we have, you name it, we do it. Because actually I do genuinely believe that HR is one of those things that really transposes any industry. If you understand HR principles and you take the time to understand what the business issues are that those business owners are facing, you can adapt the HR processes to any industry. And that's what we've done very successfully. And as I say, some of our clients have been with us for a long, long time, and we've grown with them. So they've maybe started off with 2 or 3 employees, and we've joined them because there's been a problem, or they've wanted some help with their recruitment, and then we've kind of grown with them. So as we've grown, they've grown. So we've introduced new things like employee engagement surveys, and we then enabled our clients to have access to those areas. So every industry and any size, really, up to about 120 employees, we're really pleased to help.
And I know from our conversations, that's an important part for you, isn't it? To grow with the businesses, to be an integral part of their business,
Yes.
to understand what's going on, etc. What else do you do in terms of what other support services do you have to support their HR and managing their talent?
Well, we start from recruiting, and really that means that we need to understand the culture of the business and understand where they want to go from a business planning perspective. So I see us as part of the management team. You know, we get all of our job satisfaction here at HR Central from working with our line managers and being part of their sounding board of their management team. Very often there might just be somebody at the top of the table who's literally business owner and manager all in one go. They don't have anybody to talk to bounce ideas off or to sanity check what they're doing. So we do get really involved in the business, and sometimes get involved in some things that perhaps aren't seen as HR. But we love that, because that deepens our understanding of the business, and then we can give a really good view of what needs to happen from an HR point of view. So basically, we start with recruitment. If you start with the HR lifecycle, we start with recruitment. We tend to do job descriptions. We can hire people we interview. We can help interview, or we can do that interviewing for them. We support with psychometric testing so that we make sure that we get the right skill set for the business. When they've started, we can start with the onboarding. We make sure everybody's legally compliant with contracts of employment, policies, procedures, handbooks, you name it, really. Anything related to employment law we can handle. We have a lot of employment lawyers that we work very closely with, but we know our limitations, and we will pass things on to them as and when they get to a problem, but we don't tend to use them very often. We tend to be contacted by the employment lawyers to help their clients with HR once it gets to that point where they need somebody on the ground to really go and do research or investigate and resolve problems. We've got employee engagement surveys that we run for our clients, really to understand what the temperature is within the business. There's been a lot of change recently. We've had a lot of employee surveys that have come back with really the mood of the business, so that we can advise on best practice and to move things forward and make sure that we deal with those issues before they become a problem with retention. So we're also a contact for the employees. You know, we don't just help the managers, we are there to support the employees as well. For some of our businesses, some of our business owners don't want us to do that, but we can carry out that role should we need to. And we become that sort of trusted bridge between the manager and the employee. So the employee can tell us something in confidence, and we can regurgitate that back into the management planning without giving too many secrets away. So it's an invaluable role for a business owner, and we get a lot of value from it too, job satisfaction wise.
Right. And we were talking offline, and one of the things that probably surprised me was over the last year, pandemic, COVID, lockdown, etc., that I thought the thing that you'd be really busy with would be redundancies. But you've sort of said that no, actually, it's not been the thing. What have businesses been doing over the last year then?
For us, it's been recruitment, which was a real shock for me. I think we had one day when the pandemic started back in March, when there was literally one day, and I remember it really clearly because I was really worried because nobody knew what that the future held from that day onwards. Really, it was the day when Boris announced that everybody had to work from home. We weren't allowed in office space anymore, and there was a big transition to people sitting on the end of beds with laptops balanced on their knees. And there was one day when I had no calls and no emails in my inbox, and I thought, right, this is it. I've had a successful business up to this point, and now it's all gone, and it's because of this shutdown, and I'm just going to have to see whatever that brings. And the very next day, I had two new clients, both of who approached me about recruiting for them, because they'd seen that they had to do something, and they were quick off the blocks. And that was the theme all the way through shutdown for me. I think people were looking at the way they were doing their business initially and saying, actually, this isn't going to work for us going forwards, even if it was just for a short period of time. So some of the roles that we recruited initially were short term. We've started doing not agency, because we're not an agency and we don't want to set ourselves up as such. But we were doing short-term contracts, fixed-term contracts, people that were just going to work on a short hourly basis for our clients. And we just found that the recruitment side of things grew and grew and grew, which was really positive. I was expecting my clients to be phoning up and saying, can't do this anymore, we're going to have to get rid of X, Y, Z. And instead, we found that they were pivoting their business and changing their direction slightly, but needed a new skill set to be able to do that, which meant that there were some redundancies, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near as many as I thought there would be. And actually, it was because businesses were pivoting and changing the skill set that they needed, and maybe expanding the skill set and expanding the number of people they needed in that skill set, rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater by getting rid of loads of people, which we found really positive. It's been a good experience through shutdown for us, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's quite interesting actually, because I think some businesses have taken the opportunity, obviously with furlough schemes, to keep their talent on board and take an opportunity to sort of like make their teams leaner when it's needed. But I've also seen clients recruit, and I think a huge percentage of my clients have actually recruited. And just to finish, my last question really is this linkage, because it's quite interesting as an outsourced HR offering that you offer the recruitment and the HR. What's the benefits of the linkage? Of you doing the recruitment and then doing the HR?
I think because we get to know our clients so well, we can push back on that positive pushback. And I've worked with a number of agencies, all of who are fantastic. They have a great offering. But what tends to happen in an agency environment, and there'll be agencies screaming at the screen now all over the place. But what tends to happen is they're given a job spec and they go and find that person for the client. And the client gets what they need or what they think they need, and that person goes into that role, and they might stay and it's all perfect and it's great. But invariably, what I found with my clients is that they don't really know what they're looking for, and they need that positive challenge sometimes to just push them and say, you sure about that? For example, I had a client that gave me a spec for an accounts assistant because they were really struggling with accounts. And I said, well, that's fine, but actually I know that your accountant is going to retire imminently, probably in about 18 months' time. They've already kind of indicated to me that that's maybe a possibility. They haven't said categorically to you, but the writing's on the wall, and actually that's the mood of how they are at the moment. I don't think they're going to stay in the business. Why don't we, just for a few thousand more on the salary bill, look for somebody who could do that role too? Because actually that's not going to hurt, and it's a bit of succession planning. And they were reluctant to do so. So I put the job spec out, and we gave them the whole spectrum of CVs. And actually, they took somebody on who was much more highly qualified than they would have sought if they'd just gone out to market on their own. And we are a positive pushback, and we do challenge our line managers, and we kind of sit on their shoulder and just say, look, maybe there's some different way of doing this. It might be that there's internal promotions. They might not thought of some of those things that we can actually engage and make happen. So it's just a different engagement. It's as if you're an internal HR manager rather than somebody external looking into the business.
That's exactly how I was going to sort of summarize that, really. I guess that's the benefits of having the outsourced HR. And like you say, is you want to be part of the team, understand the team as if you were an internal business.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Becca. Much appreciate your time and for sharing some thoughts with us today. Thanks again for sharing that expertise and knowledge.
That's great. Thank you for having me.
So please subscribe to my YouTube channel and get notified each time I publish a new interview. And I'll see you next time for a Zoom with whoever's next.